What if I told you the most powerful kingdom in European history no longer exists? A realm so dominant that it created modern Germany, only to be completely wiped off the map after World War II. This is the shocking true story of Prussia, from its brutal crusader origins to becoming a military superpower, and why the Allies made sure it could never rise again. Strap in. This history is wilder than you think. Prussia, the rise of the Iron Shadow. In the mist-veiled forests between the Vistula and the Neman, wild tribes once roamed, pagan Prussians who spoke an ancient Baltic tongue and bowed only to the wind and sky. But fire came from the west. Ironclad Teutonic knights, cloaked in righteousness and conquest, swept through in the 13th century, baptizing the land in blood and stone. Castles rose where groves once stood, and German settlers plowed fields that bore the memories of fallen gods. A transformation took root, slow, relentless, as the old Prussian language faded and the people became ghosts within their own homeland. Yet resistance brewed. In the 15th century, Poland and Lithuania, bound by dynastic fate, struck back. The once mighty Teutonic order was humbled, and Royal Prussia emerged as a Polish stronghold, a Slavic wedge thrust into Germanic ambitions. But the story did not end in peace. In the centuries to follow, from this fractured, contested land would rise a kingdom under the iron grip of the Hohenzollerns, Prussia, an empire forged in war, baptized in faith, and destined to cast a long and fearsome shadow over Europe. From ashes to iron, the forging of Prussia's crown. Born from the ashes of a broken crusade, Prussia's rebirth began with betrayal and boldness. In 1525, Albert of Hohenzollern, the last Grand Master of the Teutonic Knights, shattered sacred vows, cast aside the cross, and donned a secular crown, turning the once holy land of the order into ducal Prussia. This heretical duchy passed through bloodlines to the Elector of Brandenburg, uniting east and west under the rising star of the Hohenzollerns. From this union, a quiet storm gathered. John Sigismund's descendants, especially the formidable great Elector Frederick William, cut the chains of Polish suzerainty and claimed sovereignty, forging a new path beyond the crumbling shadow of the Holy Roman Empire. His son, Frederick I, crowned himself king in Prussia, not yet of it, seizing dignity where none had been granted. But it was Frederick William I, the soldier king, who pounded the kingdom into steel. Under his gaze, the plowshare became the bayonet, fields of wheat turned into regiments of men. He built a war machine of terrifying precision, binding nobles to duty and peasants to service, transforming a modest kingdom into a disciplined colossus. In Prussia, the state did not have an army. The army was the state. The philosopher and the sword, Frederick the Great's Prussia. In the wake of a tyrant father's rigid order, Frederick II, destined to be called the Great, ascended a throne fortified by discipline, gold, and fear. His father, Frederick William I, had forged a machine of state where the ticking of the clock matched the march of soldiers and no breath was wasted outside the service of the crown. To this iron inheritance, Frederick added fire. With a pen in one hand and a sword in the other, he shattered Europe's illusions of peace. Barely crowned, he lunged into Silesia, wrenching it from Austria and plunging Europe into war. His brilliance on the battlefield turned Prussia into a thunderous presence among the great powers. But this warrior king was no mere brute. He welcomed enlightenment, championed education, protected freedom of conscience, and admired reason above ritual. Yet even his tolerance had a purpose: unity, efficiency, strength. As blood dried on old battlegrounds and new maps etched Prussia's reach from the North Sea to the Polish plains, Frederick stood tall, the last great architect of absolutism. He ruled not just with might, but with a vision, a monarch shaped by war, shadowed by doubt, and crowned by legacy. Ashes and awakening, Prussia's trial by Napoleon. In the thunderous wake of Frederick the Great came a shadow, Frederick William II, whose reign marked the beginning of Prussia's unraveling under the flames of revolution and the boots of Napoleon. He grasped at land but fumbled power, and his son, Frederick William III, inherited a kingdom of indecision. When he finally raised his sword against Napoleon in 1806, the blow came too late. The Prussian army crumbled at Jena, its pride shattered and its territory carved away at Tilsit. But from humiliation rose a silent fire. As French banners flew over once proud cities, a storm of reform began to brew. Karlstein and later Hardenberg stirred the soul of a battered nation, freeing the serfs, planting seeds of self-rule, and reshaping a broken system. While Scharnhorst forged a new army in secret, and Romantic thinkers lit the flames of patriotism with history and poetry, a spirit stirred in the Prussian heart. In defeat it found identity. In occupation it found unity. And through the smoke of a ruined past, a new Prussia was born, burned, bloodied, but no longer blind. From ashes to empire, Prussia's rise from the Napoleonic crucible. Out of the embers of ruin and resistance, Prussia emerged from the Napoleonic inferno reborn and battle-hardened. As Napoleon marched eastward into Russia in 1812, Prussia was shackled to him, but only in name. When his empire began to crumble, the shackles were cast off, and the Prussian eagle soared once more, bloodied but unbroken. Blücher and Gneisenau led their troops through smoke and slaughter at Leipzig and finally crushed the tyrant at Waterloo. Yet victory came not only on the battlefield, it was inked in diplomacy. Though the Congress of Vienna denied Prussia much of its former Polish spoils, it redrew the map in Prussia's favor, granting it rich lands in Saxony, along the Rhine, and even the island of Rügen. No longer a scattered power clinging to the eastern marches, Prussia became a vast continental force straddling east and west. It now stood as the sole Germanic great power with a unified national soul, poised, with steel and ambition, to challenge Austria for the destiny of the German peoples. Crown and conscience, Prussia's struggle between dream and duty. After the fires of war cooled in 1815, Prussia stood proud but conflicted, an empire of iron discipline and romantic dreams. Frederick William III's promised constitution withered on the vine, even as his kingdom's bureaucracy and schools became beacons of order and intellect. But in the West, the Catholic provinces whispered dissonance into the Protestant halls of Berlin, and the state's grip tightened. His son, Frederick William IV, saw himself as a medieval king reborn, cloaked in myth and faith. He entered Cologne Cathedral not just as a monarch, but as a man torn between eras. When the revolutionary tide of 1848 swept Europe, he wavered, first bowing to the storm, then silencing it with steel. The dream of German unity flickered when he refused the imperial crown offered by the people, not from humility, but pride. He would not wear a crown from the gutter. Yet beneath this romanticism lay the machinery of a modern state. A parliament was born, flawed, stratified, and imposed by decree, yet it endured. Though crushed at Olmütz in 1850, Prussia's ambitions were merely deferred. A kingdom caught between medieval shadows and modern dawn, it stood waiting for a stronger hand to seize destiny. Iron will, Prussia's path to German empire. As the curtain closed on Frederick William IV's reign, his brother William I stepped into history, not as a dreamer, but as a man of action. The new era of 1858 promised liberal reform, guided by Prince Karl Anton's moderate ministry. Yet Prussia's deepest conflict remained unresolved. Who held the true reins of power, the king or the parliament? The debate over army budgets cracked open the fragile constitution, and into that breach stepped Otto von Bismarck in 1862, wielding intellect like a weapon. With his doctrine of the gap in the constitution, Bismarck bypassed the chambers, funding the military without their consent. While liberals decried tyranny, Bismarck's machine marched forward. The Schleswig-Holstein crisis and the defiance of the lower chamber could not halt Prussia's war with Denmark. Then, in 1866, war with Austria shattered the old order. The lightning-fast 7 weeks war ended with Prussia triumphant. Schleswig-Holstein, Hanover, Hesse, Nassau, and Frankfurt were annexed. Bismarck offered an apology, the chambers accepted it, and the new Prussia was born, larger, stronger, and united by victory. The final act came in fire and glory. In 1870, France fell into Bismarck's trap, and war erupted. Prussia led the German states to a swift and crushing triumph in the Franco-German War. On January 18, 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, William I became the first emperor of a united Germany. The armies of Germany marched as one under Prussian command, and Bismarck, now both imperial chancellor and Prussian prime minister, bound Prussia's fate to that of the new Reich. The kingdom had fulfilled its destiny, not by moral example, but by iron and blood. The end of an empire, Prussia's final chapter. Prussia's rise had once shaped the fate of Europe, but its fall would be just as dramatic. The collapse of the German Empire at the end of World War I in 1918 shattered Prussia's supremacy. Stripped of its monarchy and its dominant role in German affairs, the once mighty kingdom became just another land in the new Weimar Republic. Humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles, Prussia lost vast territories: Silesia, Posen, West Prussia, Danzig, Memel, Northern Schleswig, and more. What remained was a hollow echo of former power, its influence in the Reich reduced to whispers. Then came the Nazis. With Adolf Hitler's rise in 1933, Prussia's remaining autonomy vanished. The Prussian legislature was abolished. Its constitution shelved. Prussia remained only as an administrative ghost, a name on a map under the totalitarian shadow of the Third Reich. World War II sealed its fate. As Germany lay in ruins in 1945, the victorious Allies carved up the land. East Prussia was partitioned, its northern half annexed by the Soviet Union, its southern half given to Poland. West of the Oder-Neisse line, the remnants were scattered between the Soviet, British, and French occupation zones. On February 25, 1947, the Allied Control Council issued a final decree: Prussia was abolished. Thus ended a state that had forged empires, fought revolutions, and dreamed of destiny. Prussia was no more, its name relegated to history, its legacy forever entwined with both glory and tragedy. So, was Prussia's destruction justified? Or did Europe lose something valuable when this kingdom disappeared? Debate in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey through forgotten European power, smash like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Next up, we're uncovering the Austro-Hungarian Empire's secrets on history love.